news broadcast. On the line with us now, Larry
Hey
Sparano. Hey
Ken,
there,
how
how
you
are you?
doing? Yeah,
Good.
interesting report. However, I think that they are still exaggerating both the seriousness of what Trump did and the public's outrage to it. Bottom line, Ken, is I think what Trump is accused of doing and what he may well have done, technically at least, it's still too thin to get everybody solidly on board to remove the SOB, get him out of office. Now compare that with Nixon. At the time, Nixon had die-hard right-wing supporters, had much of the public behind him. He had been just reelected very strongly, a strong victory. But yet, as the crime started emerging, the Watergate tapes, as it became apparent that he knew about what was going on and was involved in the cover-up, the break-in of Democratic headquarters was actually coordinated by his people around him. So even that solid support for him back then turned against him because those crimes were just much more serious and too obvious to ignore. Here, you still have the what about factor. You know, if they're going to go after Trump because he's getting dirt on Biden, then how come they didn't go after Clinton for paying for that phony dossier to use against him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I don't think it's
I
going
don't
to turn
agree.
the public.
I don't agree with you. I think once the trial actually starts and all of the information becomes public, I think the public is going to, is going to come along with it. I mean, because the basic issue is that, do you think it's right, in fact, that he uh, sought foreign interference in our elections? Yes or
Well,
no? Do
I
you think
mean,
that's right?
it
And
depends on how you
do you
define
think,
foreign interference. I
no,
mean, how did
but I
that
mean,
interfere with our election? Because it brought up dirt on Biden, and that would
no, it was
affect
in
the
the sense,
election. You
it
could say the
was,
same thing about what they're doing
yeah,
about him and what
no, no,
Hillary.
but
So again,
it's not a same thing
it's not a
thing.
slam dunk.
I think it's sunk. I think, what about the fact that he held up the money, the military, $400 million in military
We do
funds?
that all the
Now,
time when we're trying to pressure reluctant allies or possible enemies to do our will. I mean that is nothing new. In this context, yeah, you could say it was an abuse of power, but I'll give you that it was an abuse of power. But
right.
is the people really? Is it a gut churning thing where everybody is so outraged about this? I don't think so. Other than the liberal commentators that you have on MSNBC, on CNN, and all that, daily, they're with bated breath, just salivating at the latest revelations, and I think the public is interpreting that as too much. They're seeing
I
this
don't, but I
as a
mean,
witch hunt,
yeah,
as something accusing them of, even though
no,
there's
but I,
evidence. They still say, it's obvious that they want to get him out any way possible.
yeah, but I mean, still, don't forget, I said I think the numbers will come along in terms of the information comes out once there are public hearings. And I think right now, it's 61% of the people think that these impeachment hearings should happen, should occur. And plus I think in terms of I think what happened with the vote yesterday is that I think many Republicans made the decision not to vote for the House resolution, but might change their minds when it gets to the Senate. In the sense that if you had voted as a Republican, if you voted yesterday for the House resolution, you'd be hammered by Trump, for the rest of the time, when it got to the Senate. Whereas now what they'll do, they can make a decision when it's in the Senate. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Does that make
but
sense?
again, it gets back to what I've been saying a number of times in our interchanges here that it depends on which way the political wind is blowing and how strongly it's blowing against Trump at the time. Now,
Right.
it might work out with your scenario that as more and more testimony comes out, more and more is revealed, it could really turn public opinion solidly against him, which I don't think it's that now.
Right.
However, it would have to be more than him holding up funds for Ukraine. Uh, Again, a separate element here that could come into play and actually be more
Right.
more effective against Trump would be the Southern District of New York, the prosecutors there digging up dirt on his tax returns, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But again,
Well,
Ken, I mean, this is just, again, too thin to really get the public so outraged about what was going on. Again, I compare it with Nixon. I mean, he had won re-election by a huge majority. He had his conservative supporters, the right-wing Republicans. They had all kinds of groups behind him, and that eroded because it became obvious that it was really like a gangster operation going on, and that was hard to justify. I wouldn't compare
Well,
that
let me ask you this.
to any degree yet with what's going on with Trump.
Yeah. Let me ask you this before I have to run. But what about Trump's idea of this fireside chat, where he reads?
I know. Is he getting himself in deeper by reiterating?
Where he reads the letter.
What he's trying to do, I think, is normalize it. That okay, so I had this conversation. Is that such a big deal? That could be a tactic. It's more than him just being delusional that he did nothing wrong. He knows that the more you admit something and say, well, what was the big deal? People start saying, well, yeah, he's kind of right. He's sly like a fox. I keep saying that. Again, I'm not supporting Trump. I'm not saying what he did is right. What I'm saying is the way it's going to play with the public, the way it's going to play with the politicians.
All right. Listen, have a good weekend. Talk to you later.